Let's bring in Michael Allen now. He served on the National Security Council under former President Bush. Mike, thanks for being here in person.
Thanks for having me.
It feels an awful lot like Russia and China are coming together now to kind of try and chip away at American superpower.
Right.
We had joint naval exercises between the two countries last week. China is now shipping munitions to Russia. Now Xi has traveled all the way to Moscow to meet with Putin. What do you make of all of it?
So I think what they're discussing is sort of their common view, their aspiration of what the world looks like. And for the two of them, it's China first dominate Asia, make it safe for them to trade and exploit their neighbors economically, and of course to move the United States out. It's the United States that is guaranteed that Asia is able to be a free trading zone, if you will, for many, many generations. As far as Europe goes, I think it's Xi Jinping would prefer for Putin to be able to call the shots. If things had gone better the way they intended in Ukraine, Putin would be all the way up to the NATO border, and we would be in an entirely different situation. We'd have tens of thousands of troops stationed in the Baltics and in Poland trying to deter an attack by Putin into NATO.
So James Carafano from Heritage was here yesterday talking about the same subject, and he thought that Russia is clearly the very junior partner in this relationship, and that everything that Xi is doing with Russia is in China's interest and not necessarily in Russia's interest. What do you think?
Well, I think that's the case, but let's wait and see whether the weapons transfers go in the types of volumes that we're worried about. If that's the case, I think that will be a serious endorsement of what Putin is up to. That will mean that we will be in a bit of a proxy war with the Chinese. That will mean that the Putin...
One proxy war is not enough?
One proxy war is not enough. This would be a really bad situation for the United States. And it's up to the Biden administration, frankly, to quickly figure out a way to deter the Chinese so that they don't transfer these weapons. Because if they do, this is going to be an entirely different situation for many, many years.
What happened to President Biden's mantra of diplomacy, diplomacy, diplomacy? You know, he always says it's better to communicate with our adversaries rather than to shun them or block them out. He's been teasing having a phone call with President Xi since he shot down or ordered that Chinese spy balloon shot down. That was weeks ago now.
Yeah.
The White House confirmed on Friday there's no call in the works. Never has been. What gives with that?
Well, you know, they lurch from let's have an engagement strategy to, oh, no, we're more about competition. I think right now they are trying to have a better relationship diplomatically with the Chinese. The balloon got in the way, and now with Xi Jinping going to Ukraine, I think they realize now's not a good time for us to otherwise be talking with him right now. And so they can't quite find their moment to get the relationship back on track, but we've got a ways to go to figure it out.
I want to go to, I believe it's call for number 2 here, the Anthony Blinken quote, because Anthony Blinken is saying that, Xi's visit is coverage for Putin on war crimes. He said that President Xi is traveling to Russia days after the International Criminal Court issued an arrest warrant for President Putin, suggests that China feels no responsibility to hold the Kremlin accountable for the atrocities committed in Ukraine, and instead of even condemning them, it would rather provide diplomatic cover for Russia to continue to commit these very crimes. But the United States doesn't recognize the ICC. Neither does China. Neither does Russia. And the Wall Street Journal said it this way: the ICC is the wrong way to beat Putin. The U.S. should steer clear of endorsing the International Criminal Court's warrant. So why is Blinken going down this road?
Well, I think maybe he's just trying to get a PR boost out of this. And I think we can hang this effectively around Xi Jinping's neck. Putin, there's been an arrest warrant for him for war crimes, for taking children and
from a body that we don't recognize.
From a body we don't recognize. But nonetheless, I think this is damaging diplomatically for the Chinese and for the Russians. And so let's make them pay for it. Let's make people in Europe and across the developing world realize that this is a stark choice between the United States and free and open democracy and the authoritarians and the autocrats who would trample upon freedom if they had the chance.
And maybe a plea to just not prosecute our soldiers, please and thank you, from the U.S. government, which is why we don't support that.
Exactly.
Mike, thanks so much for coming in and joining us on set.
I enjoyed it.
Thanks, Mike. Good to see you.
Yes, sir.